Did you believe that cream pies were out of reach once you started your weight loss journey? Oh, ye of little faith. I have the perfect solution for you here. These are my mini coconut and banana cream pies. They are so tasty, you won't believe how low in bites, points, and calories they are. And I'll show you how to make them coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is one of mine, or actually two of mine, and if you go to the blog, there are actually 6 versions of these cream pies that I'm making today. Besides the coconut and banana that I am doing today, 2 separate pies, not coconut and banana together, but, although you could. Besides those 2, there is also a chocolate cream pie, a peanut butter chocolate cream pie, a mocha cream pie, and a lemon blueberry cream pie. And you can come up with all sorts of variations if you'd like. You could do a butterscotch cream pie. Really, once you learn the basics, you can come up with all sorts of different flavor combinations. Now, I came up with this recipe because in a recent video of hers, Sandy from Life with Sandy was talking to her husband Jim. I believe it was one of their tag videos. Sandy was talking about making one of my recipes, and Jim said that he was hoping I would come up with something coconut. And I know Sandy loves banana, so I came up with a coconut cream pie, then turned it into a banana cream pie, and then turned it into other variations, as I said, that you will see on the recipe blog. Now on the blog, all of these are just going to be listed under light cream pies, and I'm going to do the shells first, or the crusts, and then each of the different variations follow. So it's all under one recipe. And I am making these today because I did a poll on my community page here on YouTube, because last week, as many of you know, I was down with a stomach bug and could not put out a recipe. So I put up a poll as to whether you guys wanted mini coconut and banana cream pies or banana nut muffins. And it was close. There was a time when they were fairly farther apart, but it came down to like, I think a 45-55 split, and the cream pies won out. But I will be doing the banana nut muffins for next Friday, so don't worry if you voted for those. Now, to come up with the pie shell or the crust, I opted for using these soft tortilla mini bowls. I had used them once before to make pumpkin pies, but I decided they got a little too soggy if they sat for too long. So I thought there must be a better way to prepare these, and I believe I have found it. Because I had made some of these pies just before falling ill last week, and they ended up sitting in the fridge for, I think, 5 days. And they actually didn't get too soggy. They were soggier than I know Paul would like. He likes them when they're crispy right after I make them and then fill them. I prefer them sitting a little bit to soften up slightly, but even sitting in the fridge for 5 days, they still held together fairly well, so I was actually pretty impressed. But I do recommend trying to fill them within like 6 hours or so of them being eaten, and you don't have to make them all at once. I will show you all of that as we move along, but first let us go over the ingredients. For the pie shells or crusts, as I said, I'm starting with soft tortilla mini bowls from Old El Paso, and we are going to doctor these up, not only make them a little crisper, but also to give them a little buttery sweetness that you might get from a pie crust. It's obviously not going to be a pie crust, but it's going to approximate it fairly well. And to do that, I'm going to use some spray butter. If you just have butter flavored cooking spray, that should be fine as well. And then I have here 1.5 teaspoons of sweetener, sugar replacement. I use a 1-to-1 replacement for sugar. I use Swerve. And if that looks like more than 1.5 teaspoons, it's because it is. Typically, each of these pies will make 6. There are 12 of these tortilla bowls, and 6 makes one of these pies. Since I'm doing 2 pies, I have to do all of them, so I actually have a tablespoon in there. But typically this would make 6 pies, and you would only need 1.5 teaspoons. For the coconut cream pies, I have here 1.25 cups of almond milk. I have some coconut extract. I have a package of sugar-free vanilla instant pudding. I have 3 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of unsweetened coconut flakes. Now I scanned them in the store. For a serving of unsweetened, it came out to 5 bites. For sweetened, it came out to 6. So you could, if you didn't mind playing around with the bites or points, you could use sweetened coconut flakes and skip sweetening it yourself. But I am using unsweetened just to make sure I keep the bites and points down to where I want them. So that's 3 tablespoons and 1 teaspoon, but they are divided. 2 tablespoons here and 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon here. Now I do recommend that you weigh it when you're measuring out your coconut, because 2 tablespoons on the package, which is what they do the nutrition facts for, comes out to 10 grams. But if I just measured it, and they're probably packing it, I'm assuming, if I just measured it in the tablespoon, which is a little difficult because you get all that space in there, it only came out to like 3 grams for a tablespoon. 2 tablespoons is supposed to be 10 grams, so I ended up measuring it just to get more accurate to the nutrition facts. So I really have 10 grams here and about 7 grams here for the tablespoon and 1 teaspoon. I have 2 tablespoons of sugar replacement, again Swerve, and I also have 1 teaspoon of sugar replacement. So it's 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon divided. And that's because one of these is going to sweeten our milk, one of them is going to sweeten the coconut that's going to go on top. Now for the banana, I have 1 cup of almond milk here. You need less because here we're going to be steeping the coconut and some of it is going to evaporate, so I used 1/4 cup more here, but it doesn't add any bites or points. It will obviously affect the calories and macros. And I have vanilla extract. I'm going to need 1 teaspoon of that. Again, a package of sugar-free vanilla pudding mix, instant. 2 bananas that are very ripe, and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar replacement. That's to give the bananas some caramel sweetness, that kind of like reminiscent of a banana's Foster, if you've ever had that. I also have here some walnuts that I've toasted. I pre-toast my walnuts because it really enhances the flavor of walnuts. So whenever I get a bag of walnuts, I automatically toast them all. That way they're available to me already toasted. I don't have to worry about toasting them each time. This is an optional topping for the banana cream pie. Paul wanted a little walnut crunch on there. This will add a bite if you add that in, but it's still low enough in bites that you may want to add it. And for the topping of our cream pies, I have Cool Whip fat-free. This is the lowest in bites and points. The sugar-free or no sugar added, whatever it's called, actually has more bites and points than this does. So I recommend going with the fat-free, but if you can't find it, the sugar-free is fine. You just may have to adjust the bites or points. All right, so I have a lot of equipment over here as well because we are doing 2 different pies. But let me shuffle a few things around and we will get started making our pie crusts. so for the pie crust, if you have difficulty finding these, I seem to find them much more easily now than I did when I originally found these. But if you do have trouble finding them, a good alternative, which you would not have to bake, Ortega Fiesta Flats taco shells. I used these when I made my faux cannolis, and if you haven't seen that video, I will put a card up here and link it down in the description box. This would not be exactly the same, but it would give it a nice crunch to your cream pie. So this is also an option if you can't find these. But for these, what you're going to do is take them and put them out on a baking sheet, fairly well spread out. Now, as you get towards the top, some of them may be kind of crunched in. As you can see, this first one's a little mushed in, but we are going to try to carefully correct that. So set these all down. And then if you have, like this one, doesn't have much of an edge here, it's missing a little corner, it'll be fine. But on these two, the bottoms are kind of bowed out, so if you try to set them down, they kind of like flop over. So what I do is I push in on the bottom as gently as I can because it can tear the sides. But I push that in to try to make it a little flatter so that it'll sit better. And the same with this one. And again, it may split a little on the edge. This was already split there. It's going to be fine once it's baked up. It's not going to be that big of a problem. And you can always take that as your own if you're serving these to guests. Got that approximately open enough. Now what I'm going to do is just take a couple of sprays of butter spray onto each one. And like I said, you could use butter flavored cooking spray. I just think this gives it a nice little buttery flavor that a pie crust would typically have. Then each one of these is going to get a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar replacement sprinkled inside. So that way it'll coat the inside, it'll give it a little sweetness that a pie crust should have. Just get that coated inside. I'm going to finish coating these with the sugar replacement. I'll be right back. Okay, so the last one, and if there's any left over, you can just sprinkle it over randomly and just coat them. You could probably forgo this little sweetener step, but I really think it enhances the shells to give them more of a pie feeling. What I also like to do is you'll sometimes have some sugar replacement that's fallen onto the baking sheet. So I like to just run the little boats around in it to pick up as much of that as I can. Okay, so now these are going to go into a 350-degree oven for about 10 to 12 minutes until they've gotten lightly browned and they will be more firm than they are right now. So let me get these in the oven and we will get started on our coconut cream pie. Okay, for the coconut cream pie, we're going to have a small saute pan and a small saucepan. I'm going to set both of those over medium heat. And I'm going to start by taking the tablespoon and a teaspoon of coconut flakes, sprinkle that in there. And I'm just going to spritz that a couple times with the butter spray. And then stir that around to get that coated. Then I'm going to take the teaspoon of sweetener and just sprinkle that over. And you could maybe get away with just using a half teaspoon, but I like making sure that the topping is going to have a little sweetness. It will kind of candy it a little bit, but it really does enhance the pie, because most coconut cream pies do have a bit of toasted coconut on the top, but you will see the sugar replacement start to melt a little bit and get wet. but that is totally fine. So now we've got that going. We're going to take our 1.25 cups of almond milk. Try not to throw it all over with my twitchy arms. We are going to add in our 2 tablespoons of coconut flake and our 2 tablespoons of sugar replacement. This is going to become almost like a tea. We're going to steep the coconut in the milk to give off some of that flavor to the milk. We're also going to leave the coconut in there. We're not going to strain it because you do want those flecks of coconut in your pie. Okay, so these are each going to go for about 5 to 7 minutes. The coconut topping, as you can see, is already starting to get a little brown from the sweetener melting. So I'm just going to keep stirring that, keep stirring this through and letting it steep, and I will be back. Okay, so the coconut has been cooking for close to 5 minutes now, and that is dark enough. You don't want it to get too much darker. What we're going to do now is take it off the heat and just let it cool right in the pan. And this coconut milk is still steeping a little bit. We probably have another couple of minutes there. And the pie crusts are just about to come out of the oven. So I will be back in 1 moment. Okay, so here we have our pie crust, and you can see that the top edge has gotten fairly brown. The bottom has not, but it is a little wet from where the butter spray and the sugar have melted. So what we're going to do is let these cool completely. The coconut milk is just about done. So I'm going to set this aside, let this cool, and I'll be back to finish up the coconut cream pie part. Okay, so this has been steeping about 7 minutes. You can see around the edge it's starting to get foamy and a little bubbly. That is exactly what you want. What we're going to do is turn this off now, and I'm going to transfer this into another bowl just so that it will cool down a little faster, because we cannot add the pudding mix in until this has cooled a bit. Get that in there. And now that it's off the heat, we're going to add in our coconut extract. You always want to add extracts in off the heat, because if you add it in while it's still heating up, what that's going to do is cause the alcohols in the extract to evaporate, and you're going to lose a lot of the flavor. So you always want to add that in off the heat. So we're going to stir that through, set this aside, and we're going to get started on our banana cream pie. Just let me clean a few things up. All right, so for the banana cream pie, I've got my 2 bananas in a bowl. I'm just going to mash those. You could do it right in the pot. You don't have to mess up another bowl if you prefer not to. I just figured this way it was easier for you to see what I was doing. Not that you really can't figure out how to mash a banana. Just saying. Once that's all pretty well mashed, it doesn't have to be perfect, because we will still mess around with it a little bit in the pan. I'm going to put it in my medium saucepan. Turn this on over medium heat, just as we did with the coconut cream pie. And I like to mash it down a little bit once I get it in the pan, spread it out. That will help it to caramelize easier, also give you more surface area for browning. What we're doing here is trying to release a lot of the moisture from the bananas, so that way once we decide to fill our pies, it's not going to be too wet. If you just added mashed banana, it would be a little too wet, and so we want to not only get rid of some of that moisture, but also to caramelize the banana sugars as well as the brown sugar. We're going to add that in too and stir that through. As I said, this will give it kind of like a Bananas Foster caramel type of flavor, but it won't overwhelm the banana. You'll still definitely get that banana flavor. You could, if you didn't want to try to find brown sugar replacement, You could use regular sugar. I just think that the brown sugar adds nice caramel flavor that really does enhance the banana. All right, so we're gonna let this sit, stirring it frequently for about 5 to 7 minutes so that a lot of that moisture evaporates and it's gonna become more of a paste. Right now you see it's kind of like just a lot of wetness with some banana in there. We want it more of a paste. So we're gonna give this 5 to 7 minutes and I'll be back to show you where we go from there. Okay, so you can see a lot of the moisture has left the bananas. It's now more of a paste and it's kind of staying in place when I move it around the pan rather than trying to merge back together. And that is exactly what we want. So we're going to turn off the heat, set this aside. We're going to take a bowl and add our banana mixture into the bowl because again, we're going to want this to cool down to room temperature before we add in our pudding. And to help that along, we are going to add in our cup of almond milk. That'll help to cool this down since the milk was not heated through. And then we're going to add in our teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now I'm going to take my whisk and just combine this so that it's more unified than it currently is. Get that banana incorporated into the almond milk as well as the vanilla getting dispersed throughout. Okay, so here's our banana. Here's our coconut. I'm going to keep them on the cool counter because they have to cool down to room temperature, as I said. Then I will be back and we will move on with the next step. Okay, so each of these has cooled down to room temperature. Now all you're going to do is add in the pudding mix, instant pudding mix. Make sure you don't get the cook and serve because that won't set up the way that this will. And I'm going to add that right in to first the coconut. And you could use other flavors. I'm using vanilla. You could use white chocolate. It may alter the bites or points depending on the flavor that you get. I know for the chocolate mocha and chocolate peanut butter cream pies, if you use chocolate fudge instant pudding, it's higher in bites and points than if you just use chocolate. So do be aware that changing the flavor could alter the bites or points. So I have the pudding mix added in, just going to whisk that together. And you want this as smooth as you can get it. There will obviously be flakes of the coconut in there, but as far as the pudding mix, you want that very well incorporated. You don't want clumps. There's our coconut cream. Let me just clean off my whisk before I do the banana. And it's the same thing here. We're just going to whisk our instant pudding mix in. You could, if you'd like, use chocolate pudding mix, chocolate and banana. That might be a very nice combination. I haven't tried it, but I'm sure it'd be delicious. Just going to whisk this in and incorporate that. Concentrating that banana flavor has also helped with the aroma. Definitely get banana. And the coconut, especially with that extract, it's very pronounced. So now all we're going to do is wrap each of these with plastic wrap. You don't have to worry about having it contact the top of the pudding mix because it shouldn't form a skin. But we're just going to cover these and we're going to refrigerate them for an hour before we assemble our pie. So that way it gives them a chance to firm up and allows our pie shells to be at room temperature as well. And then it's going to be assembly time. So I'll be back in an hour to show you how to assemble them. Okay, so our pie shells have cooled. You can hear they're not as soft as they once were. They've got some nice browning on the bottoms. It's exactly what you want. Now, Paul likes them this way. Just fill them and get that crunch from the shell. And they are good that way. I prefer letting them sit a little bit to soften up slightly, but it's your call. Now, I'm not going to fill any more than I'm going to use within the next 6 hours. As I said at the beginning, I did end up letting them sit in the fridge for like 5 days while I was sick. And they were still fine, but they were a bit softer than I would necessarily like. So you can pre-assemble these longer if you don't mind them getting softer. But what I'm going to end up doing is storing whatever I don't use today in a baggie and saving whatever filling I don't use, and then just assembling them as I need them. If you're doing them for like a party, a gathering, you can prepare them and then they're fine for like the next 6 hours or so before they start getting too soft, or at least for what some people might consider too soft. But to assemble, you need 2 tablespoons of the fat-free Cool Whip. And so I have my little number 30 scoop, which is about 2 tablespoons. And then I have it's about 3 tablespoons worth of the pie filling. So, and then I have my scale here just so I can measure out the coconut for the top. It says about 3/4 teaspoon. If you do that, I would round it. What I ended up doing was weighing this. I got about 9 grams. So I'll do measure it out, but you don't have to be that precise. You can just divide it amongst the 6. But because I'm not doing them all at once, I figured I'd portion it out a little more evenly. And what I'm going to do is take one of my shells, put in the filling, and it'll fill up probably about 3/4 of the way. Then I'm going to take my 2 tablespoons of fat-free Cool Whip, put that on top, and then just spread that out to the sides. There is the coconut cream pie, and okay, it's coming up as 70 to 71. So if I go to 72, just a little sprinkle right on top. And there you have the mini coconut cream pie. These are really so tasty. Now, I'm gonna make Paul's in a minute, but let me switch over and make the banana cream pie. Okay, so the banana cream pie is the same thing. You're gonna take about 3 tablespoons worth of the filling, put that in there, 2 tablespoons of the fat-free Cool Whip. I try to get it right in the middle so then I can just spread it out to the edges. As I said, Paul wanted a little toasted walnut on his. So I put in the recipe, you can use like 24 grams of toasted walnut. That would be split across 6 pies. So each of those would get about 4 grams. So it's at 76 right now. And actually, you don't even need that much. If you only use 2 grams, which covered the topping fairly well, that should be 0 bites. So I'm gonna leave it there. And I'm gonna amend the recipe just to say this is the option. But I think that looks like plenty. It's got a nice little toasted walnut topping there, which is optional. In the original, I did not put that. Totally optional, but you can make it that way if you'd like. So let me straighten up a few things here, and I'll be back to tell you all about the bites, points, calories, and macros. All right, so there you have it. Some delicious mini coconut cream and banana cream pies. For the shells themselves, if you use what I used, it would be 1 bite per shell or 3 bites for 2 shells. So, and as I said, you can fill it with all sorts of things. With the pudding mix, what I would do is cut the milk in half and use almond milk. That way it's a nice thick consistency like you would get in a pie. You don't want it to be a real soft pudding texture. But you can experiment all you want. I was thinking adding some strawberry to the banana might be good for a strawberry banana. As I said, I have a lemon blueberry on the blog. I also have coconut cream, mocha cream, and chocolate peanut butter cream. And those are all really good too. So you can play around with it as you want. Just whatever amount the milk is called for, I would cut that in half to get that proper consistency. Now, as I said in the recipe, this will make 6 mini pies. I made 6 coconut, 6 banana cream. Now, for the coconut, it would be 3 bites for this mini pie here. And that's partly because the coconut that's inside and toasted on top, but definitely has a taste of a coconut cream pie. It is so good. But 3 better balanced bites for that, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. I'm on the Healthi Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. So that's the points and bites that I give for. You'll have to adjust based on your personal points if you're on WW or if you're on a different Healthi plan. But if you're following calories, 1 coconut cream pie is 96 calories. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 3.7 grams. The carbs would be 20.3 grams. The fiber would be 0.5 grams. And the protein would be 1.2 grams. And that is for the coconut cream pie. For the banana cream pie, if you do not add the optional walnuts on top, this would be 2 better balanced bites or 2 of the old blue points. With the walnut, as I said, I got away with 2 grams and it covered fairly well, so you could get away with not adding any bites to it. If you used more, it would bump up a little bit to 1 bite, but still 3 bites for a little pie, worth it in my book. If you're following calories, the calories on the banana cream pie would be 110. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 2.1 grams. The carbs would be 25.1 grams. The fiber would be 1.2 grams. And the protein would be 1.3 grams. And that is for the banana cream pie without the walnuts added. But delicious, quick little pies that you can serve up. Be great for a picnic, for a barbecue, what have you. You know, you have a dessert that you can really enjoy and not use too many of your bites, points, calories, or macros on. Now, as I said, the recipe will be listed on the blog as just Roy's Light Cream Pies. It'll show you first how to do the pie crusts, and then it'll give you 6 different options. And again, you can play around with it however you like and come up with your own concoctions. And if you do, I'd love to see what you come up with down in the comments. But if you enjoyed this video and these pies, I hope that you will give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. Share any of my videos if you think there's someone out there who would appreciate the content. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Now, as I said, the loser of the poll, the banana nut muffins, will be coming up next Friday, so don't worry if that's what you voted for. It is coming up. And comment down below, which one did you vote for? Did you vote for these or the banana nut muffins? If you voted for the banana nut muffins, are you still interested in trying these, especially knowing that there's such variety to be had? And the link to the recipe blog is down in the description box, as is the link to my Amazon storefront, my Fetch rewards, my Built Bar rewards, and my social media. Here is my Instagram handle if you'd like to follow me over there. And there are 2 Facebook groups that I'm part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, of course, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there for lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, support, and people. So I'm going to go make a couple of more pies so that Paul and I can have our little snacks. And I am so looking forward to these. So until next time, bye.